In today's lesson we're going to learn how to make this wig. Isn't it cute? It's actually a hat or a beanie underneath here, so the hair is just attached to the hat or the beanie. You can use any hat or beanie that you like. If you have a pattern you already know off by heart, by all means do that. Or you can follow the video that's on the screen now and go and make that hat. And then come back and then I'll show you how to add the hair. You can make it any size. This is probably going to fit a 7 or 8 year old. You can use any colour and any length hair as well. It's very easy to adjust that as well. So I think this is really cool. And I am spewing that it's not my size. So let's get started on the lesson. You are going to need approximately 7 ounces or 200 grams of yarn. I didn't quite use all of that, depending on the length that you need. It is quite a yarn hungry project, so you're going to need quite a bit. But it was, for me, it was only, like our balls are 100 grams or 3.5 ounces. It was only 2 balls of yarn, so this whole project, including the hat, cost me about $6 or $7, so it's pretty cheap. You are also going to need, so you're going to need your yarn, you're going to need your hook that goes with your yarn. You are also going to need a pair of sharp scissors and a crochet hook and a sewing needle as well. And if there's anything else, I will add it into the next clip and tell you what you need. There is a bird up the tree there. Can you see it? And it's making these clicking noises. The quick clicking noises, not that other one, that's the shed expanding. Pretty sure it's a Rosella. It's hiding behind that leaf. Come out and say hello. But they sit up there and chew on gum nuts. And then spit them all over your backyard. No, it's too much foliage in the way. Anyway, on with the lesson, hey? Quick little look at the birds that we get in our backyard. I'm not sure if any of the colours are showing up. They're bright red and they've got blue on their wings. They're very pretty. Oh, and then the camera just moved. There he is. Oh, you can see a little bit of the red on him. Here he comes. We're going to need something to wrap your yarn around, and because I want the hair quite long, I've got a A4 folder full of files and whatever's in there, and I've just wrapped it around there. And for the fringe, if you want a fringe, you're going to need something a bit smaller as well. So I've got my little black book, and I'm going to wrap the yarn around that. So I've already done bit for the hair, so I'm going to show you on the smaller one how we're going to do the fringe, and we're going to do the hair exactly the same way. So you're going to grab your book or whatever you want. You could use a piece of cardboard, they'll do exactly the same thing. We're just going to wrap our yarn, and if you've made tassels for scarves and things like that, you've probably already done this before. So you're just going to wrap your yarn around and around and around. You're just going to keep going. You're going to need quite a fair bit on here. I had about that much, and it was layered on top of each other. Don't layer it too much if you can, because you'll get different lengths, but squish it all up. You can do 2 or 3 layers, that's fine. And you're going to wrap it quite a bit. You can always wrap it more if you need to add more. So once you've got all of your yarn wrapped, then we're going to make the stitching across here. And what we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch across here. So when you get your folder or your book, I'm just going to go back a bit, you're going to find the center point, and we're going to slip stitch up the center. So it's slip stitching up here. Normally when you do a pom-pom, you go to the edge and you cut it there. We're not going to cut it on the edge, so we're going to slip stitch across here, and then we flip it over and cut it on the other side. So I'm just going to put you back. Now excuse my voice today, I've actually got a cold, so I'm sounding quite nasally. So you're going to grab some yarn. It's going to be the same colour as this, but I'm using blue just so that you can see the stitches standing out. So you're also going to grab a hook. I've got a G, which is a 4mm and 8-ply yarn. You can use a hook that's a bit smaller because that's recommended for your yarn, because we need the stitches to be really tight. So what you're going to do is make your slip knot. Just make it however you make it. Put it on your hook. What you're going to do is pick up some strands of yarn. Now, we all know 8-ply is equivalent to double knit or sports weight yarn. If you've got worsted weight, which is really thick, you probably may need to pick up less. You may need to pick up more strands. But I found that 4 strands of yarn worked for me. So I'm picking up 4 strands of yarn, going underneath them, and then I'm working a slip knot. Oops. Let's just zoom in a bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up 4 more strands of yarn. So you can do more or less, it's up to you. And we're going to do a slip stitch. So we're going to go underneath the yarn, grabbing the yarn, pulling through, and then pulling through for a slip stitch. Now this is going to be loose. You're just going to shift it over so it's in line, and then you're going to pull tight. You're going to pick up some more strands. If you do 4 or 5, you know, and it's not even, it's not going to matter too much. Pick up your strands of yarn. So you're going underneath the strands of yarn, your hook, grabbing and then pulling through. Making sure it's lining up, pulling tight, grabbing more yarn. And you're going to repeat this through the whole thing. So you're going under the strand with your hook, grabbing your yarn and pulling it through the loop that was on your hook. You know how to do a slip stitch, don't you? So, and pulling tight. And you're going to repeat this all the way until we get, let's just zoom out, you're going to repeat all the way, and as you go make sure your stitching is straight. You can just shift it over before you pull it tight, just shift it over. And then when you get to the end, we are going to leave, I'm going to say 30 centimeters or 12 inches. That may be too much, but it's better to have too much than not enough, because we need that to sew the hair to whatever we're going to sew it to. In our case, it's going to be a hat. So as they say, here's one I prepared earlier. And here's all my slip stitches. They're all the same colour, obviously, because you don't want them to show. You could do it all different colours if you like, all different colours of yarn, and then it wouldn't matter what colour you used here. So now what we want to do is, I'm going to zoom back so you can actually see the whole thing that I'm doing. We have slip stitches on this side. We're going to flip it over. Moving the phone out of the way. Flip it over, and we're actually going to cut the yarn in the centre of this one, because on the other side the centre slip stitches were there, so if we cut it on the centre of here, in theory we should get the same length on each side. So we need to find our scissors, who have decided they would run away, and then we're going to cut in a straight line up there. So I'm just going to grab my scissors and I'll be back. Now this fold is pretty cool because it's actually got the little, this is like the halfway point, so I know halfway between there is halfway. So you're going to grab your scissors in the halfway point. If it's not exact, like, you know, millimetre, doesn't matter because we can actually trim the hair after. God, this is really hard. Okay, so you get the idea. You've got to cut all the way up there. I'm going to cut this off camera because it's going to be a lot easier. So now we have our bits of hair, and you're going to probably have 2 strands that aren't the same length, because when you started wrapping you're going to have like two strands, but you will probably find those as you go along. So just either pull them out or just trim them up or hide them in your project. So what we need to do now is find our hat. And I've also done the fringe, and I'll try and show you that. It's a bit of a mess at the moment, it looks like spaghetti, but it's heaps shorter as you can see. So what we want to do is, you're going to grab your balloon, or if you've got a Mrs. Foamy or something that you can use as a head shape. Obviously if you've got a head, a real head that you can use for your beanie, you can use that as well, and you're going to put the hair on it just to see how it sits, and then you're going to do a couple of stitches. If it's on a real head, be very careful, we don't want to be stitching anybody, but if you use a wool needle or even a crochet hook, it's not going to do any injuries. So I'm going to get everything set up and then we'll show you what we need to do. I'm going to try and work to the side of my camera because I actually need to show you what I'm doing. So excuse the mess in the background, they're actually future projects if you can figure out what they're going to be. We want to grab the hair section of our strands that we just did. So this is the back. I've actually got the seam at the back, doesn't really matter because it's all going to be covered in hair, but I'm just putting that at the back. And I'm going to grab my hair and grab the seam part, and I'm going to try and center that to the back of the hat. Just be gentle with the hair because you don't want it all tangling up and make it a big mess. So I'm just placing it on top of the hat, and you can't even see that, can you? Let's see if we can go up a bit higher. Right, oh, it is as high as it can go. Bugger. Okay, so I've placed it on top of the hat. I haven't done anything special, just put it up there. Then I'm just bringing down the back seam, just sort of bringing it down. And what I need to do is bring it down. Can we still see in there? There's a lot of hair. You're going to bring it down to the bottom of the seam there. So, do we have a strand that we have on the end? Yes. I actually have a strand here where I haven't actually finished off the hat, so I'm just going to tie those together. So I've got the strand coming off the hair where I did my slip stitching, and then the strand where I finished off my hat. If you don't, grab a piece of yarn or the yarn that you've got on the end of your hair from the stitching and just put a couple of stitches there just to hold it in place. They aren't going to be permanent, so you need to make them quite tight and make sure you can't see them. So now what we need to do, let's just move this camera a bit. I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but it's all loose. Like I can actually see the hat through here. So what you need to do is just sort of position it so it's not all stretched out. Let me see if I pull it apart. So you're going to just position it so it's not all pulled out, and you don't really want to see the hat behind it, even though it's the same colour, so it's not going to matter too much. You don't want to stretch this right out so that you can see more hat than you can the hair. So you're going to position it like that. So the top of the hat up here, I'm just going to put you up there. Up here I haven't actually attached it because I'm going to grab the fringe and then put the fringe on. So let's spin her around. So be very gentle, you don't want the hair falling everywhere. Look at her, she looks like a hippie. So this is on someone's head, you'd be doing exactly the same thing, or on a balloon, just the cheap balloons from the party shops or cheap shops, wherever you get them. They do perfect. But if you're going to be sewing something on, I do recommend covering your balloon in tea towel first, in case you pop it. So I've got my fringe, there's the seam. Well, you don't want to see the seam on the fringe, so what we're going to do is we're going to fold the top layer over. So we're just going to flick it over. So so that we have our fringe like that. Then, I'm trying to get his camera to go up, it won't. We're going to lay the fringe. Now I'm going to try and do this one-handed and try and film it as I go. Wish me luck. So I've got the fringe, where is it? Here. And the seam is up here, so that's the edge of the hair. And you're going to lay it across like so. That looks really bad, doesn't it? It's really hard to sort of figure out what I've done on camera. So I've laid the fringe across like so. Okay, that camera angle just wasn't working. So, hopefully the light's okay here. I'm away from my bench. So at the back we've got the hair. I haven't stitched it on or anything, it's just laying on the top. And then we've got the fringe. See how the fringe is like so? So what we want to do now is grab the fringe, grab it along the stitching. So please excuse me if I do go off the camera screen because I'm kind of doing this blind almost. And you're going to line up the bottom of the fringe here with the bottom of the hat because you want the fringe to be covering the hat, right? So I'm just going to do this off, off screen so I can see what I'm doing. So it's about there. See how the fringe is covering the bottom of the beanie? The bottom of the beanie is just here. So it's pretty much in line with that. So you want to make sure that you can pull the hair up. So I'm just moving it a bit because I've got plenty to play with down the back there. And I'm just adjusting the fringe. So what you're doing, you're just basically putting it in place to where you want to sew it. So you could just put in, maybe use a different coloured yarn and just attach it to the hat so it doesn't fall off. And then grab your hair at the back and just pull it up. And you're going to tuck the hair underneath. Let's see if I can get a close up. We're going to tuck the hair underneath the fringe at the front. So here's my hair, the seam, that's the edge of my hair. And I'm just going to tuck it under slightly. Just so you can't really tell where the hair starts and finishes, right? And then making sure it's still okay at the front. Yep, that's still alright. And then you could just play around with the hair gently, just making sure that we haven't stretched it so much that you're getting bald spots on your person, on your hat. If you find that you do have some bald spots and you've had to stretch it too much, you can make another section of hair and then just add it on. I mean, it's all the same colour, so you're not going to notice, right? So let's just have a look at the back here. Just going to see if that is stretched out too much. No, I don't think so. Once I put those in pigtails or ponytails or whatever, I think that's going to look pretty cool. This is looking so cute, by the way, isn't it? So what we want to do now is start to stitch it on. Now some things are really, really hard to show you on camera. This is when I wish I could be in your lounge room or your computer room or wherever you are sitting watching this and actually show you what to do. So adjust your fringe first. Make sure it's at the right length. So I'm just lining up the fringe to make sure it's in the right spot. And I've got some different coloured yarn, and I'm actually just going to tack it on, so I'm not actually stitching it on. I mean, you can use a needle, but I'm actually going to use my crochet hook. What I'm doing is I'm going under the fringe, so I'm going underneath the slip stitches that are there, and I'm going to pick up some stitches on the front of the beanie. I'm going to loop my yarn over my hook and then pull it through, so I'm pulling it through the stitch on the front of the beanie and then through there. And I'm just tying it on, just gently, don't do it too tight. You want to take this off unless you want a blue streak in your hair. So we've done the middle. We're going to work our way to the sides. So you may have to just push some of this hair out the way. You have beautiful hair, my dear. How do you keep it so natural? So then I'm going to the side of the fringe and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pick up a stitch on the hat and then get underneath the slip stitches. Grab my yarn. I know I talk too much sometimes, but I just like to give you a verbal explanation as well as the visual, just in case you can't see what I'm doing. So I'm just tacking it on. See, gently. Let's just zoom out. Oh, other way. I'm just tacking it on here, here, and here. You can do more if you like. I think 3 should be enough for me. Make sure it's even too, so when you're looking at it, you're making sure the fringe is even across this way, so it's straight, it's not wonky, but also the hair down here is at the same length as it is on the other side. Because nobody likes going to the hairdressers and getting a crooked haircut. Been there, done that. So I'd love it if you could leave a video response if you make one of these, or email me photos to the email in the description box below the video, and also Facebook and Ravelry. We have a page over there, so you can share over there. So this, oh no, a hair just fell off the back. Oh, it doesn't matter. Concentrating on the front. So just make sure it's all the right length. We can trim it with scissors after, so that's all good. So now I just have to pick a hair back up. The toupee has fallen off. And then we want to tack the hair down. So when you're looking at it, you're going to centre up the hair, or the fringe, and then your parting, or whatever you call them, the part of the hair is going to be in the centre of your fringe. Of course, if you want to do it other ways, go for it. But I'm going to go to the centre. That's how my hair is always like that, parted down the centre. So that's how I'm going to do this one. So you just want to try and tuck the front. I need to zoom in again. There we go. Ooh, hang on. Tuck the front of the fringe just under the front of the hair. This bit where the slip stitches are here. There. This is the front. I'm just going to tuck it under the fringe, just so we can't really tell where it's joined. But we're not tucking it under too far, we're just covering the first couple of strands. So it's literally half a centimetre or less than 1/4 of an inch. Just popping it underneath there, just so we can't tell where that's started there. And then you want to make sure, when you look at it, the part, you can't see anything that I'm doing because I'm zoomed in. You're going to spin it around and then make sure your part is straight as well, because, you know, you want perfection. So you're going to adjust it there, you're going to attach it in a few different places, so when we sew it on, It's easy. So you should have something that looks like someone's been to the hairdressers and got a really bad streaking job. So now we need to sew it on. And we're going to grab our needle. And you're going to find, good luck, the piece of yarn that was really long that you were going to sew it on with, right? So we're going to do our fringe first. So you can just sort of peel back the hair. Now I've changed my mind. Remember how we said we're going to tuck this under? Well, then we could kind of see the seam that we had from our fringe. I thought that looked really ugly. So we're actually going to go over it. But we haven't sewn it down yet, so it doesn't matter. We can always change it, right? So we're just going to pop it over the top so that when we've got our hair, when we put in our ponytail or whatever, it's actually going to cover that the slip stitches from the fringe. Anyway, we'll do that bit next. So we're just going to pull back the hair like that. And find the really long piece. Oh, here it is. It should stand out pretty well because it's pretty long, right? Excuse me. To make you guys, but I hate the flu because it just hangs on. I've had it for like a week. And I've been wanting to do this tutorial for like 3 days and I've just been so crook that I couldn't. So now we've just got the nasally voice. Okay, so I need to start here. So I threaded my yarn, and that's where it's coming out of there, you can see that. So what you're going to do is, you're going to stitch through the beanie, or the hat, and then you're going to stitch around the slip stitches, so you sort of, this is going to be really hard to show you, isn't it? It's all the same colour. So you're going to go through the beanie, so let's do that. Putting a couple of stitches through the beanie. So you can see that easy, yeah? So we've done that. Now we're going to go to, and if you want you can take out that stitch there, because now it's attached on that side. We're going to go through, so my slip stitches are here. Can you actually see that on camera? Probably not. Stitches are there. So you're going to go underneath the slip stitches and then you're coming around it. So you've got underneath the slip stitches and then you're going to come back and slip stitch into the hat. If you find an easier way to do this, by all means do it. And then we're going to stitch into the hat. Oh, and just be careful, which I think I just did there, I looked away. When you're stitching, that your hair isn't getting caught up in the stitches. That's hair, isn't it? It's not yarn. It's hair. Right, so let's do another one. We've gone through the beanie because we just attached that. So we're going to go underneath the slip stitches. Because my slip stitches are there. So we're going underneath the slip stitches. Maybe if you hold the hair down like that, it'll work better. Oh, now it's getting caught over here. There we go. Maybe if you hold it all down like so. No, don't move your hand. There we go. So it's gone under the slip stitches. Now we need to go through the hat. And I've moved my hand. Okay. Underneath the hat. Pick up some stitches on the hat. And now we want to pick up some stitches. So we're going under the slip stitch and stitching it on. Okay, so we are going to start the hair part, the top part. We want to overlap this seam just a little bit. So I'm overlapping by about 1/2 centimetre or smaller than 1/4 inch. and we're just going to sew it on the same way. So pulling that through, making sure that this front seam is sewn down, so you may have to go through the seam. And then make sure you go down in through the hat as well. And then like that. So you just want to do that same method, so going, let's try and move this a bit. You're going underneath the slip stitches, going through the hat, and then coming out on the other side. And we're going to work our way down, keeping the stitches small. So we're going to one side of the slip stitch, going underneath, grabbing the hat at the back of the needle, coming up on the other side of the slip stitches, then going back over. So we're basically, I think it's called whip stitching. Making sure we're pulling it tight so we know it's attached, so it's not going to fall off. And working your way all the way to the back of the hat. Okay, so you're sitting on the floor with me now because I can't get to my work station that I need to get to. So I've sewn on my hair, the fringe is done, so now we just want to make the ponytails. So I'm just picking up the front section here. I'm just running my fingers through it because you want to get all the strands all nice and neat. You want them all to not be nice and straight. You could probably use a really wide tooth comb, but it might get stuck in the yarn. So, pulling the fringe forward, we're just going to lay the hair over. Let me just zoom in a bit. See how we've got the seam here? We're going to lay the hair over it so it covers it up. And then I'm just scooping the hair out from under the front there. Then we are going to grab, this is really hard to show you, we're just going to grab sections of hair, making sure they're nice and neat, and we're going to collect them all at the front, so we're going to give it pigtails. We're just going to do that all the way around. So I'm just bringing them all towards me so that I'm gathering at the side to make our pigtail. So I'm going to do that to one side, and then I'm going to come back and we're just going to tie it up. So I'm just making sure at the back that I've got all the hair. If you're a girl making this, or you've ever done girls' hair, I'm sure you know how to put them in pigtails. So you're making sure the part, you've got the ones that go this way on this side, and the same for the other side. So if you've got any short bits, like I can see a short bit here somehow, it must be where I wrap my yarn, you can grab a hook and go from the underside of the hat and then like pull it through and then sew it in the back of the, like the inside of the hat, so that you can't see that short piece. So we're just grabbing it like that, and you can use anything to, that's that piece, to gather the hair. You can use a hairband, some ribbon. I'm going to use some yarn, and I'm just going to tie it off. So just make sure it's all nice and neat. I mean, of course you can style the hair any way you like, but I'm going for this look. I think it's really cute. So you may notice here there's the hat, because I've pulled it there and then the fringe is going this way. So you may need to just sort of adjust it a little bit. And I'm actually going to put the elastic band or the hairband or yarn, whatever, I'm actually going to gather it just below the beanie so that you can spread out and cover the beanie, the hat. So I'm going to, so if the beanie stops there, I'm going to put the band about here. So you need to do this and then do it to the other side as well. Also, when you're pulling the hair across like this, make sure that you don't have a bald spot like that showing. You want to even it all out, making sure all the bits underneath too are nice and straight and caught up. There's one here that's not properly done. So this bit might take a little while, just to get all the strands nice and straight. And then come from underneath too. This is going to take a little bit of styling. And once your princess is done, then you want to put your hairband on. Stay there, you. I don't have a hairband, so I'm just going to use some yarn. I'm going to tie it up. And I might try and find some ribbon. Or make a couple of bows. I do have some bow videos. You've got there's a little pink one that you can make. It's quite quick. It's just made with triple crochets. Or is it treble crochet? Or there's the other bow that I have. So, I mean, or you can find some ribbon that'll look really cute too. So see how we've got a bit of hat shown there? We just want to fix it up so that we can't see it. Alright, so you want to do the same for both sides.